Okay, so this is going to be a continuation of AMD analysis, and I know I have Intel up here, but let me get into that. So, I want to talk about Intel because that's the major competitor towards or against AMD. This is not a conclusive, fundamental analysis or just an analysis. This is just a real basic, my predictions on what's going to happen, and I'll tell you why. So, starting last year, their yields on the 14 nanometer process has been extremely small performance gains. So with those gains and the extremely high premium that people are paying for, you're paying for, like, let's say the new CPU comes out and it's still $100 more than last year's CPU, but if it's $400 and the other one below that one, the one that came out before, is $300, and your net percent gain in performance is 10%. That's a ridiculous purchase, on anyone's radar. Like, if you're at all good at math, you're going to realize that is an awful purchase. You're going to pay 25% to gain 10% in terms of performance. Is stupid. Anyway, so that's primarily the reason why Intel has been just shitting on themselves. Their last 3 updates have just been crap. So let's see. What I had some stuff written down here. Oh yeah, and fundamentally, Intel is spending way too much money, just a ridiculous amount of money, on stupid things like buying McAfee security. Why are they buying that? There's no real reason, and the justification for buying McAfee was just dumb. In my opinion, it was just a really bad purchase, and spending $8 billion really reduces your profit margins over time for something that it's just so stupid. God. And the other thing, for $17 billion, they spent something else. I forgot what it was, but I'll look into it. But they're buying stuff that is just completely non-beneficial to them right now, and the bottom dollar is just being decreased because now they're getting into debt, and the only way to fix that is to fire a lot of people, and I'll get into that. So what's another reason? So the Intel Atom CPU, like the Intel tried to get into the mobile market, for example, like tablets and stuff like that. Their A chip is pretty good, what Apple is using for their phones, but their strategy for getting into the mobile market is pretty dumb, considering that you have upcoming or rising competitors like Nvidia and the ARM architecture, like Qualcomm and whatnot. Like, you have too much competition for them focusing on something like that is ridiculous. And their tactics are actually just to buy into it rather than developing something that could be good. Like let's take a look at like Intel Atom C2000, for example, that processor. So that one had a huge fault that caused a lot of devices to break, and that's costing Intel even more money, like into the millions and millions. And they did release a fix for it, but the fix is motherboard side, I believe, and that's not causing the root. That's not fixing the root problem of the CPU. So I'm predicting that something else is going to happen. Because you can't have something that's releasing performing at so and so, and then the fix reduces performance or something like that. I don't know what kind of fix they did, but I'm assuming that just doing a motherboard side update isn't going to fix the root issue of the CPU. So anyways, Intel did announce a lower data center revenue overall, and that's just likely secondary to the AMD coming lineup, because their lineup Ryzen is coming out, so it's cheaper, it's equal in performance, it's got a really good performance per watt, which is what data centers like. So that is one of those areas that AMD is focusing on, and you can tell that Intel's taking a hit there. So Intel has hit a point where they can't afford to hit the 10 nanometer architecture and there's so many factors in play as to why I think that is. But you don't fire, like, what was it, 11% of their workforce recently because you have a lot of money to burn. They might have had a lot of money to burn, but now that they're spending billions of dollars on stupid things that at the end of the day is not going to really benefit them at all. They're getting complacent, like I said. So, so the next coming upgrade isn't going to be an architectural upgrade. It's going to be another fucking optimization. It's not going to be a new CPU. It's going to be a premium priced CPU for a 10% upgrade, for example. So, and the consumers have been taking notice on this. They're not buying those CPUs. Well, it's just not cost effective, and even the servers know that. So anyways, so bear in mind that Intel is having some pretty bad yields on their production, which is increasing their price of the product. And what I mean by that is manufacturing has a low yield output. Like the number of defects on the CPU side is keeping the price of the CPUs high because their yield is so low. And AMD is having the opposite of the problem, Well, right now it is. Right now, in terms of supply, AMD has no issues right now. So anyways, just remember that they recently cut 11% of their workforce because of that shit performance jump. That's really what it boils down to. They're getting lazy because AMD is doing awful. But as of January last year-ish, as soon as that new GPU came out and their whole restructuring of their architecture, like they're just revamping everything. So they're dealing with a different beast right now, and they're totally not equipped for it. So the only way to counter these poor acquisitions is to cut their workforce. And so my prediction is that Intel is going to take a huge hit, AMD is going to go up, and bad news is going to come out for Intel, throughout the year. With layoffs left and right. And if you look at a lot of the reports, there's a lot of executives and higher-ups that are quitting because of the shitty situation that they're in and finding work elsewhere, even though the executive and lower sectors, they're finding work, just working conditions are just fucking awful, apparently. So, as far as I'm concerned, Intel is going to be going down for quite some time. Like this 200 EMA is about to do this, like that. So we'll see what happens. And anyway, watch list update coming up. So, see ya.